Hello, I'm Richard Sher, and it's time to square off, and we have a great show for you today. We have the police commissioner of Baltimore City, the Honorable Rich Worley. He's the 41st commissioner of police who joined the Baltimore Police Department as a police cadet back in 1998. He's moved up the ranks to become commissioner, and he was sworn in, sir, on October 5th, 2023. Welcome, sir, to Square Off.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's great to have you. And I want to ask you a question. First of all, what's your reaction to what's going on some of the college campuses coast to coast over the Israel-Hamas war? What do you think about this stuff?
Basically, what hopefully the young people and even the anyone can express their First Amendment rights to protest. There's just guidelines that they have to abide by. We've been prepared. We've become pretty good at protests over the last several years. So we usually try to get ahead of it, like we did. We worked with Johns Hopkins earlier in the week to get a plan in place in case they had any sit-ins or encampments. They had a protest. It was very well organized. They did their protest and then they went home, which is exactly the way it's supposed to be. And there was no need for us, other than monitoring, to make sure everybody got their chance to express their First Amendment rights.
Excellent. Well, we're really happy to have you here. We know that you're doing a very good job. The numbers prove it, and we'll get into the numbers in just a few seconds or a few minutes. Typically, police chiefs or commissioners very rarely move up the ranks in that particular city and become the commissioner. You know that that's very rare what you did. In fact, let me see. You're one of those fortunate ones. I wrote, growing up in Southwest Baltimore, Baltimore's Pigtown neighborhood, a 1983 graduate of Cardinal Gibbons High School, receiving a degree in criminal justice then at Oklahoma City University in 1987. My question to you is, you say you're the youngest of how many?
4.
Youngest
3 older
of 4.
sisters.
When you were growing up, did you always want to become a cop?
No, I really wanted to be a professional baseball player, but that dream was kind of cut short at the age of 22 when they told me to find a new profession. So then I went into I tried to hook up with another baseball team after I got released from the Brewers. That didn't work, but then I went into my family business. My sister and her brother and her husband and his brother-in-law had a family business. I went there in the sales and I made pretty decent money, and I stayed there for 12 years before I became a police officer.
So let's talk about baseball since you're in the city with the Baltimore Orioles. I read you were a catcher, and you played some third base. Is that right?
Yes, I played high school. I was a shortstop because I could run. But I played football my senior year, and I hurt my knee, so some of my speed was taken away. It wasn't quite as fast. So when I went to college, they moved me to third base. And then my junior year, I started catching. And I signed professionally as a catcher by Walter Yass, who was a longtime scout and manager of Johnny's Used Cars, which was a top amateur program years ago.
I used to be a country music DJ. I started my career at WBMD Country Music in Baltimore, and we had Ray Davis, Johnny's New and Used Cars, 4801 Harford Road, right?
Yep, that's it. That team ran for many, many years and won many national championships for youth baseball.
How'd you hit?
That was I had 2 strong points. I could hit and I could throw. My arm was really good, and I could hit with power. So catching was an easy thing for me. I loved it. But if I didn't catch, I played third base too.
Commissioner, if you have bad knees, how can you get down in that catcher's position? If I got down like that, they'd have to call shock trauma. So How can you do that with bad knees?
Well, I didn't. My knee actually had healed by the time I got started catching, but I never really gained the speed back because what happened is that when I played football, I gained 20 pounds. I got a lot bigger, more muscular, and then I never really lost that. I wish I could lose about 10 more pounds now, but even back then, I was pretty good size, so I was more fitted to be a third baseman or a catcher, and I loved catching. It was a great time, and my knee held up great. I had a knee replacement a couple years ago, but that was 2 surgeries later and a couple injuries later before that actually ended up having to be replaced.
Maybe we'll start a square off softball team and you can play with us. Would you like that?
Sure, I still play baseball. I can't hit a softball. I'm terrible at softball.
Where do you play ball?
I play baseball up in Hartford County, playing a Hartford County league up in at John Carroll High School. There's our home field, and I play in the Anne Arundel County League where we play all around Anne Arundel County with the Chesapeake Rays.
No kidding. Well, we'll have to come see you play sometime. That'd be fun. All right. Enough of the good stuff. Let's talk about success in this job. 6 months now into your police commissioner's job, the city reporting very positive trends showing declining homicides down more than 30% and non-fatal shootings down more than 20%. The gun violence reduction strategy seems to be working and has now been expanded into the Eastern District. Tell our audience about this task force.
Yeah, what it is, it's actually a group violence reduction strategy, but most people, I used to call it gun violence forever, but it's group violence reduction strategy. And what it is, it's a focused deterrence, people-based strategy that is run out of the mayor's office. And the way it works is for example, when we start in a district, we started in the Western, we pull all the shootings and homicides from a 6-month or a year period. We look at all the people that continually come up in these shootings as a suspect, a victim, person of interest, and then what groups are driving the violence. So what we do is once we figure out which groups are driving the violence through a scorecard system, we basically either bring them into a call in or we take them a custom notification letter, which is signed by the mayor and tells them, listen, we know what you're doing. We want you to take these other services that are being offered by MONSE, which is Mayor's Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement, which is job services, education, lots of different things we can give you to get out of the life of crime. And we have ROCA and YAP as organizations that can help our young people to transition out of a life of crime. However, if you don't transition out of the life of crime, you don't have to take the services. They're offered to you. What we want you to do is put down the guns. If you don't put down the guns and the violence continues, then the police department is the final part of it. Then we're going to investigate your drug trafficking organization or your violence group, and we're going to basically take you out of business if you don't stop the shootings. And once we do that, that's the first part. And then we follow up with neighborhood stabilization, where MONSE goes back in, victim services goes in, and we make sure that the neighborhood is stable. So, because what will happen is another drug organization will move into that vacated area. And we have to make sure that doesn't happen. And so far, we've been very successful with it. We moved from the Western to the Southwest, and then we moved to the Central, and then just recently we moved to the Eastern.
I heard the mayor on radio, and he was saying it's basically take it or leave it. In other words, hey, we know you're a bad actor. We know you've been involved with guns. We're going to help you. And if you're not interested, the police are coming after you and they're going to watch you and so forth. The mayor said that the 156 criminals or potential criminals have enrolled in these services offered through the gun violence reduction strategy. What are the services that are offered, and how do you convince a bad actor to come your way?
Well, you have to convince them by letting them know that we know what you're doing. Like you've been identified in this organization as a player in gun violence. We know that you're involved in this gun violence, but we want you. But they don't have to take the services. What we want them to do is put down the guns. If they decide, hey, I'm not going to take the services, but we're going to stop the violence, that's what we want. But we want them to also take the services because it's going to make them easier to get out of the life of crime. Like in the services could be, for example, ROCA. ROCA brings the young men in and they help them transition how to handle anger, how to handle the stress of being out on the street, of not having a job. We offer them job services, job training. They're offered education training where they can get their GED, they can go to school. Anything that we can do through the mayor's office of neighborhood safety and engagement and through these other organizations that all work hand in hand to get the young men and women, because there's more and more young ladies getting involved in this now. We get them out of the life of crime because there's no future for it. There's only a couple ways that your life of crime ends. It's usually you're the victim of a homicide or shooting, or you're in and out of incarcerated in and out throughout your life. And that's no way to live. We want them to become productive members of society, put down the guns, stop the violence, and do something where you have a future.
Hey, I'm interested in what you said about females, that more young women are getting involved in this. When did that start to happen?
It's probably, there's always been a few here and there, but it's really gotten to the point, I would say probably maybe just prior to COVID or just after COVID, where we're starting to see more and more young ladies, young women that get involved with the crime and the gun violence. And I don't know really what caused it. I'm sure there's people out there that have done studies to figure it out, but we see more and more. And I think it's not just because it's young ladies. I think it's the fact that during COVID, a lot of people lost the skills to interact and communicate. And because they lost that day-to-day contact and the ability to just go from where we were kids. When I was a kid, if you got into a fight, you got into a fight. Well, now they fight and then they go get a gun. And it's so many guns. That's another issue. The proliferation of guns in our city makes guns so easily available. And then if they have it, they may use it because they're being embarrassed or disrespected or they lost a fight or whatever reason. It's too easy to go to gun violence.
Before we take a break, can you give me an example of a young man who has really been done bad stuff, who accepted the opportunity and is doing well now? Or can you not name him, but just give me an example of somebody that you've had success with?
Well, there's what the mayor said about the 156 that accepted services. That's 156 of them. But the mayor often brings up this young man who he saw came up and talked to him at his son's basketball game, where the young man pulls up on his phone and shows the mayor, hey, this is a letter I was delivered from you with your signature on it telling me to put down the guns and select this other way. And the mayor had asked him, hey, what do you need? He goes, I'm good. I just wanted to show you the letter and that it had turned my life around, that I'm now I'm with this program. I'm not involved in the drug game. And when we did the rollout of the Central District, I believe it was, we had a young man who came and spoke who was a product of the program, where he has stopped the violence and now he's got a job and he's starting to have a family, and it turned his life around. And that's what we want. We want these young men and women to have a future, because in the past, there's never really been that opportunity there. We've tried this twice before and it's failed both times.
Why do you think so? Why do you think it failed?
Part of it was not everybody who has to be a part of it bought in the past, and now you've got the police department, which is me. You got State's Attorney Bates. You got the mayor. You got the Attorney General. You got the governor. You got the U.S. Attorney. Everybody is here to help you if you want help. However, if you don't want help and you don't put the guns down, you continue to violence. We're kind of the last step where we come in and then you're going to end up going to jail because you refuse to take the other opportunities and you refuse to put the guns down. So if you put the guns down and you go become a protective member of society, that's a win-win for everyone, the community, you and us, because we're never going to arrest our way out of this. We've got to give alternatives, and that's what the group violence reduction strategy does.
That's very, very encouraging. We're enjoying our interview with you, and we'll be back with the police commissioner. Commissioner, I want you to meet the voice of Squirrel. He's Howard Mallison. He has won Emmys, Grammys. What else, Howard? You're too embarrassed. All right. Tell us about our sponsors.
Thank you, Richard. First of all, we'd like to thank our 4 sponsors for making Square Off possible. Pappas Restaurants and Sports Bars voted best crab cake year after year by readers' polls, and it's Oprah's favorite. 4 locations with the newest in Bel Air. And Leading Edge Auto Body and Mechanical Repair want you to know that the insurance companies cannot tell you where to take your car. Call Leading Edge at 410-433-6433 or visit them at 5807 Falls Road in the heart of Mount Washington. And our good friend Barry Glazer, attorney, who will help you get the compensation that you are entitled. Barry has a doctor and nurse on staff, so for personal injury, medical malpractice, or nursing home neglect, give Barry Glazer a call at 410-547-8568. And your friendly neighborhood Double T Diners, from Route 40 West to Annapolis and everywhere in between. The Double T Diners are the area's #1 choice for breakfast, lunch, dinner. Double T, totally terrific. Back to you, Richard.
Thank you so much. Our exclusive interview with Baltimore Police Commissioner Rich Worley continues. And I want to talk a few minutes about juvenile crimes. You've picked up kids as young as 12 who've had guns, and other juveniles who have been involved in carjackings, drivers taken at gunpoint. People have been assaulted. We've seen video from these ring cameras of guys just jumping innocent people and robbing them. The question is, do you think our lawmakers, the legislators who just left Annapolis recently, have done enough for juvenile crime legislation? Or would you like to see more serious action taken?
Well, I think what they've done is they've changed from the way it was. What was tried a couple years ago was juvenile reform. And what that did, it was probably a little too soft on the juvenile crime. So they went back to Annapolis this year, and they're coming out with some more bills with a little more bite to them to address the violence among the juveniles, and hopefully once those are enacted, we can start. But even before the bills started, we've been talking with the Department of Juvenile Services and the state's attorney's office, and we've all been working together to try to stop the revolving door of juvenile crime. And so far, we're doing okay with it, but there's a long way to go, and we still have a lot of things to fix. But we're all talking and working on it, so hopefully we can come up with a solution here pretty soon once this legislation is passed. Or goes into law. It's already been passed.
Right. Well, a lot of these kids end up with these guns, and the question is, where are they coming from? Where are all these guns coming from?
Well, they're coming. Obviously, we know they're not coming from the city because there's no gun stores in the city. So they're coming from outside the city. There are personally manufactured firearms where you can order all the parts online and put the gun together yourself with a couple tools. But these kids are mostly getting the guns from other people that are selling these firearms, or some of them are stolen. The fact that there's just so many guns out there, I've never seen it in my 26-year career where everybody has a gun just about. I know that's an exaggeration, but it just seems like everybody on the street has a gun. Where our numbers our gun arrests are up, our gun seizures are up, and we're just touching the surface on how many guns are out there. And the bad thing is it's getting into the hands of younger and younger individuals. And this all starts basically with the family. because a 12-year-old shouldn't be out in the middle of the night doing a carjacking or doing a robbery, or a 13-year-old or a 14-year-old. So, and some of the parents just need help that they just can't handle the children. And then some of them are being raised by grandparents and aunts and uncles. So it's a systemic issue within the households, that these young men need mentors, and young women need mentors to show them the right path and get them out of the life of crime.
Well, ever since the death of Freddie Gray back in 2015 and the subsequent charges brought by then State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby, reports, and I'm sure you've heard some of them, have circulated about a decline in morale at the Baltimore City Police Department because of what happened when Marilyn Mosby brought charges against those officers who were involved with Freddie Gray, that some of your officers are reluctant now to do their jobs out of concerns that they too could face charges. Has that been made more palatable now?
I think we're past that stage. I think what happened right as the charges came out, everyone was a little shocked, and crime escalated because there were some officers that were afraid to do their job. But I think we're way far past that. Our officers are doing a phenomenal job with the amount of people that we currently have, which is just above 2,000, compared to what the last time we were able to achieve under 300 homicides, we had just short of 3,000 cops. And the men and women, together with all our partners, have done a fabulous job. And I don't think Freddie Gray's even in the minds of any of the young police out there now. They've got a job to do. We've trained them very, very well to do that job. And I think this is something that we've been way beyond, and the officers are able to do their job and do it correctly because we've corrected some of the training issues and some of the issues that we had in the past. We're under a federal consent decree, so we have to put out policies that are designed to make us a better police department. And we're one of the very few, if not the only department in the country that's been able to reform a police department and lower violent crime at the same time.
It's coming up on the 14th of May, and some have exaggerated. We've heard that you're 600 officers short, 7, 8. One of the candidates said 1,000. Public Information's Amanda Cropney tells us square off people that there are 2,003 sworn officers. You're budgeted for 2,592. That's 589 vacancies. How are you going to fill those vacancies? Because it's so important.
Very slowly, unfortunately. What's going to happen, the first thing we have to do is stop the officers who are leaving from leaving. And I think we're working on that. We're trying to get they're in contract negotiations now. So I can't say a whole lot about that, but they should have a new contract eventually. But we're going to change some things that we've done previously that didn't really work out. Like we have permanent shifts where a lot of our young officers are working 3 to 11. On January 1, when our shifts change, when our schedules change again, the permanent shifts are going to be done away with. We're not going to have a permanent Baker day work and night work. Adam's shift, the overnight, the midnight shift will remain permanent, but the other 2 shifts would rotate every 28 days. So when we looked at exit interviews, a lot of officers said they were leaving because they were on permanent 3 to 11 and they don't have a life outside of the police department. So we had to change that. Some of the other things that we're making better is the good thing is I came from within. I worked my way up the ranks, so I know a lot of the stuff that people that come from outside just don't know. And I've changed some things that has increased the morale. And I think just the fact that whether it was me or someone else, that someone is now the police commissioner that came from a police officer in Baltimore helped increase the morale, because it kind of like it's one of the Baltimore's own that's now the police commissioner, and you can work your way up from an officer all the way up to the commissioner seat.
Well, I think you're doing a terrific job, and we hear very
Thank you.
positive things. I want you to do this now. We didn't talk about it, but while we're here and while you're recruiting, in fact, police departments all over the country are short. A lot of them are short officers. If we just gave you the camera and the microphone, do a little bit of recruiting here on Square Off. Would you do that, Commissioner?
Oh, absolutely.
Somebody, go ahead, please.
Yeah, first thing is I'm going to give you the email address at least once. It's bpdrecruit.org. Our top officers can earn over $102,000. Our starting salary right now is $61,000. We have a $10,000 sign-in bonus. We have $5,000 tuition reimbursement, $2,500 property tax credit, and we're actually going to increase our take-home vehicle program. And one of the reasons that I stayed, because I had talked about leaving many years ago when I only had 4 years on. One of the reasons that I stayed, and I'm so glad that I did, is the fact that upward mobility is very real and very attainable here. A lot of people think pay is the number one reason people leave an agency, but it's not. It's actually number three. Upward mobility, the fairness and equitableness of upward mobility, and working conditions. And we've been trying to improve both. Our officers are getting good cars. They're getting new cars with all the bells and whistles that they could have. They have computers in the cars. We're going to be probably adding 2 new police stations in the next couple of years. And it's, my opinion, it's just a great place to work. You're going to work hard because it's a tough place to work too. But you will learn so much here in a short period of time that you'll be able to carry that experience going through the rest of your career or somewhere else, if you just so choose to do it. But it's bpdrecruit.org.
Excellent. Excellent. We have a few minutes left. I just wanted to ask you, or I do want to ask you, we know that crazy drivers and make you crazy. These people that are running the lights, that are hitting pedestrians, that don't care. You know, I stopped at a light at Northern Parkway in Green Spring the other day. The light mine turned green. And before I went forward, at least 5 cars just went through the light. I know traffic enforcement is one of your real pet peeves. Tell us about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think the only way, I saw a huge difference in people's driving patterns since COVID, because there weren't as many people on the roads, and people just drive like there's no traffic laws. And it's our job to make sure that those traffic laws are enforced. Now, the officers still have discretion, but if someone's running a red light and there's no option that, like, that red light is red and you just decide I'm not stopping. I give you a story we had yesterday. We were coming back from picking up some supplies, and we had to pull over, or we tried to pull over, a young lady who was obviously impaired. And she drove and until we got the helicopter over her. She went on for probably 15 minutes until marked units got up with us and arrested her. And she was obviously impaired, but we were trying to stop her. She had driven through 2 school zones, kids getting out of school. And we just had to hope and try to get ahead of it. And the helicopter did a fabulous job. Our officers in Foxtrot and the officers from the Southeast and Eastern were able to box her in so she couldn't continue fleeing. And we were able to take her into custody, and whatever her issue was, whether it was intoxication or a medical condition, we were able to get her off the streets and make the streets safer. But just the fact that double parking and just pulling over and stopping and saying, okay, well, I'll be right back. Well, no, you don't get to stop in the middle of Pratt Street to go pick up food. You don't get to do that. That's not part of the traffic laws. And there's some other areas in the city that, and my wife uses it, makes a joke that, what are the traffic law, red lights and signs? They're suggestions. And that's the way people are looking at it. And it's time for us to stop making it a suggestion and making them stop. That doesn't mean everybody gets a ticket, but that also doesn't mean everybody gets a warning. So it's up to our officers how to handle it. We just want them to stop the behavior And the only way we do that is get out and start pulling people over for committing traffic violations. And not only that, it's not just about traffic, it's about life and death. We've had 17 fatal people die from fatal accidents up through March 29th when we started this initiative. Since then, we've had one so far. So I look at it as a huge success. I believe it is. Our men and women have got the message. We do well over 200 car stops almost every single day, and they're doing it the right way. So I'm really happy with the traffic initiative. Obviously, I would like more, but it's going really well, and I'm really happy with the work of the men and women of BPD and all of our partners.
I think everybody is very pleased with what's happening at the Baltimore City Police Department. I want to end with one of your favorite topics, dirt bikes, which I know are illegal, but it's unbelievable. I mean, what are you going to do about dirt bikes?
Well, I saw a video the other day where they were trying to entice our officers to chase them, but our officers know better. They're better trained. They'll just sit there and smile at them. That makes them even more mad. But what we're going to do, we are going to start, it's against the law for gas stations to allow members on dirt bikes to fill up the dirt bikes. It's against the law. And I think it's $1,000 fine if they're caught doing it. So we will continue to start giving them citations, or even start giving them citations. And then when we can catch the individuals on the dirt bikes, we don't chase them, but at some point they either stop riding or they start to store the dirt bikes, and we'll do the investigation to try to confiscate them. And Mr. Bates even talked about holding the parents accountable for the behavior of your children, because it's having an adverse effect on public safety. I see them all the time drive up Pratt Street in the middle of rush hour. And not only is it bad for the people that are out there, but it's bad for them. They're going to get into an accident and get hurt or get killed, because we've had several happen. So this is something that we're going to continue to enforce, and we're going to make it a little more difficult for these individuals to get gas by holding the business owners accountable that are contributing to this behavior.
Well, Commissioner Worley, it's a pleasure talking to you here. It's been about 6 months since you've been the commissioner. Well, let's do another one when we're at the 1-year anniversary. And by then you will have turned 60 years of age.
I know. Yeah, none of the ages have ever bothered me, but the 60, like I was looking at it the other day, I'm like, man, I'm going to be 60 years old. And it's like,
oh,
somebody sent me a picture yesterday, one of my government affairs. She ran into a guy that I played baseball with, and it had my picture on Johnny's. And I looked and I was thinking back, I was like, holy cow, that was 40 years ago.
Oh my goodness.
Where does time go?
Well, keep hitting them out of the ballpark with those great stats. The murder rate's going down. Non-fatal shootings are down. The morale, because one of their own is the commissioner, is going up. So let's hope that things continue successfully for you. And thank you for being on Square Off. We'll have you back real soon. Commissioner Rich Worley, head of the Baltimore City Police Department. Oh, and by the way, if you'd like to become a city police officer, and I would when I turn 40, okay? It's bpdrecruit.org, correct?
Yes, that's it. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Great to see you, Commissioner. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
See
Bye.
you next time. Once again, we square off. Bye-bye.